corner to my left, and we'll go around the room and just say, name and who you represent.
Neil Gibson, City Attorney's Office.
Barb Smith, Chesterfield.
Earl Jones, City of Richmond.
Ellen Robertson, City of Richmond.
Terrell Peterson, right?
Cheryl Adams.
Jim Engel, Chesterfield County.
Weinstein, transportation reporter with the record citizen.
Anthony Carter, GRTC.
Jan Swift, GRTC.
Kevin Hernandez, GRTC.
April George, GRTC.
Joe Dillard, GRTC.
Timothy Martin, GRTC.
Laura Fraser, GRTC.
Ken Lance, Glen RVA.
Tanya Thompson, GRTC.
Sharika Ruffin, RideFinders.
Jackson Hurd, GRTC. David Wild, GRTC.
Picture Robinson.
All right, good morning, everyone. Let's approve the minutes first, and then we'll go to the CEO's report. Anybody have any questions about the March 17th board meeting minutes? All right, Aaron, now can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All right, moving second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the CEO's report.
Good morning. I have a quick report this morning. Unfortunately, I don't think any of my employees of the month are here. But we will recognize them anyway in their absence. The first one is an operator, Viber Allen. It says he brings a positive outlook to GRTC as a line trainer, which means he trains new operators. He consistently supports new operators while performing his job at a high level. The next one is our transportation payroll coordinator, Samantha Borja. It says she consistently works through her shift covering nights, weekends, and holidays to ensure that payroll is submitted on time and is correct. She answers questions about payroll and never misses a beat while still staying upbeat. She works very well with leadership in her department, always willing to help, going above and beyond. And the last one is a transportation supervisor, Jocelyn McCrae. Since Jocelyn does an amazing job operating the radio, regardless of how busy it gets, she makes sure operations is running smoothly. She always has a smile on her face and stays calm. She holds the eating shift down, and her goal is always to make sure everyone makes it safely home by the end of the night. So we want to thank each of them for what they do here at GRTC to help us continue to provide the service that we do. So we're going to give them. Thank you. The next thing I want to update you on are some rider feedback surveys that we have been doing. We completed one and we currently have another one out. And the purpose of these is to get a better understanding of the rider experience and identify opportunities to improve the service. So we just started one, which is with the ABBG, that's the American Bus Benchmarking Group. We are a part of that group. And we are able to compare some of our service and ideals with other agencies throughout the country. So this customer satisfaction survey is for a fixed route service, and it will run through May 10th. So feedback is being gathered. We're down at the DTS as well as online, gathered through this effort to help us inform our future service planning and ongoing service improvement. And last but not least is the TAP and community engagement. We continue with our TAP Access Partnership through a series of community-focused efforts. And we're having a little micro fundraising initiatives, and we're trying to tie some of those to Earth Day this month. And these efforts are building to lead up to our July 14th big event that we had last year, and we'll have it again at Main Street Station. So we continue to work alongside our regional partners to advance long-term sustainable funding strategies.
Thank you. Any questions for? All right, hearing none. I know, I think it's a donor is coming up in a second. And Mr. Anderson, I think the son-in-law lost, I think his father. Yeah. So So he had to go to a funeral today, so he's not here. Consent agenda all falls under, this two ten, BRT, extension 30% to 1% design, facility paving, ETI implementation and ETI engineering, CM, and the CEI services and project management. All of these, information has been shared. Anybody have any questions? So I need to bring this achievement up, or do you want to go ahead and consider it? All right, can we get a motion?
Second.
All right, motion moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Ms. Torres is coming up with their regional public transportation plan. Is our action item.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This action item is for our regional public transportation plan, and this comes to the board annually for the CBTA funds. So there are two kind of categories that we're requesting to use the funds for FY27, and that's maintaining our current service levels as well as providing matches for pretty much our general merit application grants. So we are looking at a request of using about $31.2 million for maintaining current service levels and about $2 million for the capital grant matches. As is our practice, we use prior year's accruals to pay for the next year's service. So we are projecting about $35.1 million to accrue by June from this particular year. And so that does leave a balance of about $2 million. So the request with that is to put that into restricted reserve until we come back with a plan for next year. And then as the accrues come in for FY27, the projection is about $36.3 million according to VDOT for this next year. Those will all go into restricted reserve for next year. So the request is to the board to approve the 33.2 for use for FY27. And for the two additional funds, the 2 million and the 36 to go into the restricted reserve.
Questions, colleagues? Explain one more time about the pull of money from next year's or the previous years. Just explain about.
Yeah, so all the funding comes in this year, starting in July. We put all of that into a restricted reserve. And so once that's accrued, we then use that for the next year because we just want to make sure it's realized as far as what the projections are to pay for our future years.
This year.
Correct.
Colleagues, questions?
And for me, that's your process that you've utilized. This isn't a deviation.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, if you have any questions, we just need a motion.
So moved.
Second it.
All right, moving second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Torres. And Ms. Robertson, subcommittee report from operations. You have anything?
The committee met, I think it was this week, you know how schedules get crazy. Remember, weeks just run together, but operations seems to be performing at above satisfaction level, even though there have been some changes in the frequency of some of our routes. We're getting some very positive feedback and comments from passengers that really appreciate the services, and the public service officers and ambassadors seem to be all hands, feet on board and really enjoying and appreciating the opportunity that they have to be direct assistance to their servants. There are some delays that we've experienced, but you know, a lot of the reporters during the ice storm period, so that's somewhat to be expected. And paratransit, I think the only thing that was kind of brought out is that some folk may not be showing up all the time, and they're looking at a strategy of how they deal with that, giving people a warning, and then proceeding to a higher level of accountability if that doesn't work. So things seems to be working well. Thank you.
Questions, colleagues?
I don't know if it's, direct to you, but where are we at on operators?
Yes.
I was gonna ask.
Because it's not anywhere else, so this seems to be the right place.
Yes, we did cover that in the operations committee, and currently we are still at our 313, but we have several classes in process, or based on our projections, we will meet our 325 operators by June. So we have a class that's graduating the end of this month, I think it's 5 or 6, and we'll have continuing graduations, and we're taking into account people leaving. We're averaging about 4 a month, so that's why we say the end of June.
So we meeting, union. How often do you meet with the union?
Actually, I've turned it over to Kevin, and Kevin meets with them monthly, yes.
Okay, so that's with Maurice, so some other people working there.
Yes, yes, so, we do have contract negotiations, so.
Okay. Great. You ready for development? Yeah.
Yep. So Development Committee met last Thursday. We continued the review of the draft expansion service funding allocation framework. The committee requested additional information on how routes are slotted into the 3 tiers and how the percentage is determined for cost participation. We also are interested to see how that proposed framework and maybe other possible scenarios impacts the future operating budget. So this is an ongoing discussion item. We also discussed transit access partnership proposal. Staff is proposing this program be managed by RideFinders as they are a nonprofit. GRTC has already hired a person to manage the program and secured a one-time grant that could be used to offset the first year's salary, with the balance of that salary coming from the GRTC budget. Using the existing GRTC RideFinders employee lease agreement, this person would work for RideFinders. The committee had questions about the relationship between GRTC and RideFinders and the plan for fundraising and the workload for the position. So this is an ongoing discussion item. The only other thing to remind you that the Transit Network Design Workshop is scheduled for June 1st through 3rd, which will help inform the regional public transportation plan for FY28. So locality staff will be participating in that. But there's an opportunity to listen in the afternoon for a daily debrief, which might be of interest to some of you. That's all I have.
So the RideFinders piece, ongoing conversation within the development committee. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from Mr. Mayor? All right, we didn't have a finance committee meeting, but I'm sure some financial reporting and updates. This is a rough.
Mr. Chair. The full financial report starts on page 18 of your package. I'm going to start with, slide 27, which is the operating expenses. Extra bits there, right? Okay. A lot of the same themes that we discussed year to date. So this is 8 months through the end of February 28, 2026. You can see here down on the bottom on the lower right, we're favorable, bless you, we're favorable to budget by around $10 million. The large contributors to that is labor is favorable, 2.2 million. What we see is on the vehicle operations side, as you're aware, is we're down below headcount. We're favorable $1,079,000, but we're actually, thank you for blowing that up. It's an eye chart, I apologize. So as you'll see here, the operator wages and salaries and the paid absences are slightly unfavorable to budget. That's due to the heightened levels of overtime that we're incurring due to a lower head count. But you see here that our favorableness is driven by favorable variances in the supervisor ranks. And down here in the fringe benefits, which makes that an overall favorable variance. Maintenance altogether, maintenance is slightly below budget in headcount. You see that overtime is elevated up there above the budget. The budget assumptions around 3%. We're running about 8% overtime in both transportation and maintenance. Down in the G&A, we're favorable $975,000. That's about $500,000 on wages and the balance on fringe. Largest contributor of favorable variances in the services. This is our planning and consulting studies, North-South BRT, Western Extension versus budget. We're about $6.9 million favorable on the expense side. So that will impact the revenues adversely. There is a, as we approach here the end of the March quarter, the NPRs are going, so we're going to have a better forecast as those March NPRs are finalized at the end of April to forecast out where we'll be at the end of the year with regards to planning and consulting dollar amounts. Materials and supplies are contributing favorable about 1.3 million. Unfavorable fuels, everybody knows what's going on. Fuel prices are a little higher than we expected, offset by some favorable tires and tubes and bus parts. That's based on demand coming out of inventory versus budget. Utilities are slightly positive, 234,000. The largest chunk of that is due to the good work of the rebates from the IT guys on the cellular. That was $120,000 of that. And then on the unfavorable casualty and liability costs, currently through February, it's 348,000 against unfavorable versus budget. That's due to the provisions for uninsured motorists. That will be increasing over the next month as we're going to provide more from some information we received recently. And then the paratransit purchase, that's our WeDriveU. That's still unfavorable at 532,000. That's driven by the demand for Care and Care Plus versus what was contemplated. So the themes basically have favorable labor, favorable services, and some favorable materials and supplies offset by the uninsured motorist provisions as well as the purchase transportation, which have been themes that we've seen throughout the year. The next slide, Dexter, if we could go to the income statement on page 22. So this, on our revenue side, we can stop right there. So the operating revenue is slightly unfavorable to budget. It's due to the advertising revenues currently as of February. It's unfavorable. On the other income, favorable 213,000. It's basically interest expense, favorable interest income offset by the unfavorable RideFinders. RideFinders is just, there's one person down. So it's, as we've talked about the lease personnel agreements, they're one person less. So we don't have the revenue to on our side. As you look down here, the total operating contributions is $5.8 million unfavorable versus budget. You'll see here $3.3 million of that is made up of the GRTC fund balance. The assumption was that GRTC was funding at $5 million of its operations. So this is just the amortization of 8/12 of that. As we mentioned before, with the significant variance of planning and consulting expenses, that's 6.9 million. That's 50% state grant. So bad math, 3.5 million of that would be a state unfavorable operating contribution. And the balance 46% of that, roughly, $3.3 million would be in the Fed. We're only showing 2.6. We're offset by, in the month of February, we prevented a maintenance expense to the tune of 4.4 million. That's why you see some favorableness here in the Fed and in the local contribution. That was as we had clarity on what the programming of our 5307 program would be. So we had the right grants to allocate that to. You see a lot of the operating contribution of Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield. They're in the red here. The Chesterfield, there's a portion that's a function of the Route 1A reimbursement. The budget assumed that it would be running at a rate of about 2.1 million. In actuality, that's about 1.8 million. And then the other contributing pieces to Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield is the allocation off of operating contributions into the deferred capital revenue to cover the local share portions of the operating grants and capital grants through the FTA and the DRPT programs. All in all, you go down a little bit, Dexter. This section here, you see the operating, so go a little further, Dexter. Thank you. So right now through February, we have a positive surplus around $3.9 million. We're not forecasting that for the year. We're probably under $1 million, which shows on the board package is about 350,000. We expect this number will come down over the next 4 months as we make additional provisions for the uninsured motorists, as well as there's some revenue items that we don't feel will material during the balance of fiscal 26. So with that, that's a brief overview of the February financials year to date. And if there's any questions on the rest of the package, I'll field those questions now.
Where did you say you think the best guess you have for where we're gonna end the year?
We'll be positive to neutral to probably $1 million surplus.
Sure. Yeah, so I had a couple of questions. One, I think, looking at these February numbers, I see that, which is normal, if you don't have vacancies, your overtime is gonna rise quite a bit, which is great reason to keep vacancies so that as you fill them, the overtime can drop. What I'm curious about is as you, because I know we spend a lot of time talking about this part, as you now move into the areas of filling these vacancies where we expect overtime to come down, how do you see that normalizing? Because those overtime dollars will be spent, but at that same time, we'll start filling those vacancies. When do we expect that to normalize, and how is it going to impact the labor numbers?
So that's a balance, obviously, as we fill the training classes, they're when they graduate, they'll come into the planning schedule to take service routes. So at that point, the overtime can start coming down as you know, commensurate with as the folks come out of the training program and get onto the street and actually driving revenue routes. It's hard to predict where.
But you don't, based on your classes and what's coming, we don't know when that is.
So right now there's nine folks as of February numbers. So as of February, there were 9 folks in the fixed route training classes, and there were 2 people in the micro transit. So as those 9 come out, we will expect to see some relief pending. As we said, we're treating about 4 people a month.
I just love
Only a slow recovery, I would predict.
So I would love to see, you know, what it's going to look like. When do we project for that to normalize, for us to be at optimum levels within this fiscal year? Because it's definitely going to impact the budget. So that's my personnel question. So you don't have to answer it now, but we want to follow up on that in committee meeting. The second part, though, on the operating revenues, where you are now, it's clear that some of this is because I know some of it is advertising and planned use of fund balance, but I'm curious about, you know, state and federal seem to be providing less resources, and this is based on our budget. At what point, and again, the receivables are down because of those 2 factors, are the 2 that I heard you harp on as you went through this pretty quickly. What point do you true up your numbers a little bit, knowing that some of those areas in which we're projecting to receive less, we ultimately won't receive? And so when will those numbers be trued up so that we get a more detailed picture?
So in our March financials, which would be brought to the May Board of Finance, and that's going to be our point of interim financials that we give to the auditor. So March is going to have a lot of adjustments. So the CMAQ revenue, which was budgeted $2 million from the state, will be coming out of that. Now, the other we talked about on the operating side, the planning and consulting, that's spread currently through 8 months is $6.9 million. The expenses are not there. So these are expense reimbursed grants. So 96% of 6.9 million is missing from the revenue stream of the Fed and the state operating contribution.
Okay.
So as we file the third quarter or March
those that come back into
in April, we will be able to forecast that better into the March financials to have that picture. The items that I'm aware of that I know is, so in this number here, the combination of Richmond, Henrico, and Chesterfield, there was an adjustment of $1.1 million of taking operating contribution in putting it into the deferred capital liability. That is for the 2% matching contributions for the local share, for the federal and the DRPT grants. So that's done. That's a known entity there. So that's kind of what we have right now. So our wild cards here are, as you can see here in the planning and market consulting, is getting our hands around the NPRs of what the forecast for planning consulting is, and then truing up down here in the insurance and safety. There's another case that's working its way through that's going to probably have us increase our provision for the uninsured motorists as well. And it's the purchase services of We Drive You. There was the analysis that was presented. So implementing some of those to impact that, but we're still have the negative trend proceeding. So off of here, $2 million off for CMAQ. And then there's a piece of other items here from the expense side, probably another 400,000, 500,000 possibly. So that's currently where we are. So $2.5 million off of this brings you down to 1.4. So there's other non-budgetary adjustments such as compensated absences and vacation accruals that go through that will impact this number as we close the books in June.
Got it. That's my questions. Yeah.
Councilwoman Robertson, did you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, the state and federal money that hasn't come in because we haven't, it's a reimbursement to expenses.
Yeah,
We haven't had.
that's right.
It's not because they're cut to.
That's what I was
I just
asking.
want to make sure.
He cleared it up for me. That's why I was asking. I thought that those were restrictions, but what he highlighted is we basically just haven't billed for those yet. So that will change those numbers. So that's quite helpful because I was curious about, are we looking at further reductions, but these are fine. That's on us, not requesting the fund. Yeah, all those things.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Look forward to hearing from you in May. Board chair report, I only have one thing to go in there. You have a meeting, a date either being scheduled or scheduled already. Hanover County sent a letter to us, concerned. The GRTC options, sure, this kind of brings up to speed on what the letter is really about maximum transportation efforts in Rico County and Hanover County, I'm sorry. And there seems to be a challenge where how we look at it versus how they look at it.
So Hanover is basically asking what are they getting for their CTA dollars? And they have a service, you can ask me some as the right. But they are spending a lot of money on their DASH program, which is basically their transfer program. And they're wanting some of the CTA funds that we receive to help towards that and to give them more service. So that's the purpose of the letter and the meeting, trying to meet. Adrian and I met with staff last week at Hanover County, but we want to meet with their county board chair for the supervisors. And that's the meeting that Pastor Delton is referring to that we're trying to set up to get a better understanding of exactly what they're asking us to do for our funds.
So we'll be updating next time we meet. I don't know what's gonna come out of it. I mean, you know, what's the thing? You can't squeeze what out of a child.
Yes.
We do what we can, and it's not a we're in it. Mr. Dillard, we General Assembly hasn't, the budget hasn't been approved yet, so I know there's still one or two items out there that may impact us.
Chair, members of the board, tomorrow you have the Virginia General Assembly reconvening. I'm pretty sure you guys are paying attention to the news. On the Senate side, we have a data center tax. On the House side, it's more of a skinny budget. If that Senate bill passes with the data center tax, we could expect upwards of maybe $1 to $1.5 million addition to GRTC. There's some fallout of that, how they program and pay the merit system. So we're very sitting on pins and needles. We've been lobbying, so we do have conversations with Delegate Betsy Carr, Delegate McQueen. These are conferees, which is good for us. So we had two of the conferees on the House side. We did talk to Kurzak, Senator Lucas, and Senator Mandy Locke, but the conferees have not met yet. So it's going to be a long, long process. Typically, they would have already met. Galvin tomorrow and have a resolution, but we are looking at paying attention and lobbying for the Senate version of the bill, because ultimately, not just GRTC, transit as a whole across the Commonwealth will benefit from that type of, or that city budget. Any questions?
All right, that's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
All right, colleagues, any other business?
I have
Yes.
another thing, I
Yes, ma'am.
apologize. So one of our employees of the month just came in. I'd like to recognize her. This is Samantha Woodrow. She is our transportation payroll person.
And we've already heard all the great things about you. So.
I paid you, and I understand you for everything as well, Kevin.
All right, colleagues. All right, there ain't no business. I don't think you stay here. He's done.
Are we moving?